Hello and welcome to Animate Lesson 6. And in Animate Lesson 6, we're going to be modifying and working with the camera. You'll learn how to do the following. You'll understand the kinds of motion that are best animated with the camera tool, activate the camera, hide or reveal the camera, pan, rotate, and zoom the camera, create depth with the layer depth panel, attach layers to the camera to keep them independent of camera motion, and apply color effects to the camera. Basically, what we're going to be doing in this particular lesson is building this. So it's going to keep track of the satellite's orbit, right? Juno. And panning in and out, a little dizzy at times. How it follows along Jupiter. And that's our animated or animation, and that's what we'll be working with. So the very first thing I do is I open up the 06 beginning item, and then I am going to make sure you'll notice you have your different elements here: guide Earth, Earth, guide Juno, Juno, guide Jupiter, Jupiter, orbits, Juno, and trajectory. What you're going to do is you're going to, the very first thing we're going to do, we save it, that's correct. And then we're going to enable the camera. So we're going to enable the camera with the camera tool. Now, my camera tool is down here. Your camera tool will be up here. So I'm going to turn on my camera tool. So I've added that. And that's the very first thing. The camera layer is added at the top of your timeline and becomes active. You'll notice that you have your camera right here. It has now become active. Once your camera tool becomes active, you want to make sure that the camera tool on-stage controls are present. This is your rotate. And this is your pan and zoom, and this kind of advances you back and forth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in at 260%. You'll notice as you use the zoom tool here, you'll move it over and it'll snap back to center. You've got your zoom item over here that actually modifies, right? Well, we can actually just type 260 so we know how far we want to actually zoom in. Then after I zoomed all the way in, I want to go ahead and move it where my sun is in the center. And it's essentially at negative 309, which is the X coordinate in the camera properties, and the Y at 221. I then want to insert a new keyframe on the camera layer at position roughly 24, 25, things along those lines. So after I've inserted the new keyframe, I then want to insert a motion tween. So I'm going to insert the motion tween, so I can just do insert motion tween. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my playhead all the way to 72. Now you'll notice I've already zoomed it out. So I'm going to move it roughly to 72, which is right there, give or take. Then what I want to do is I want to zoom all the way out to 170%. Now I could modify this to zoom back out if I want to, or I can just put in 170%. You'll notice it does insert a keyframe, indicating that there's some sort of motion tween between the beginning when I inserted it and here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the camera out to where I see Juno, and it's roughly at X20 and Y90. So now what we should have done is we've created an animation that allows us to keep Juno in our sights, so to speak. So here we go. You'll notice as Juno continues around its orbit, as we've included that particular motion tween, and as we move farther afield, right, we'll get closer to 72. I don't want to continue moving because it spins very quickly upwards, but you'll notice that it keeps Juno in our field of view. I want to then move the playhead to roughly 160 because I'm going to animate a pan. Alright, then you'll notice that I moved my playhead out to 160, and then I changed the position to negative 250 and the Y to 91 to for the camera properties, to kind of move it out a little bit because we're working on a pan. Okay, and what I did here at position 160 is I right-clicked and I did insert keyframe and I chose all. And inserting a keyframe for all camera properties at frame 160 ensures that any future changes in zoom, position, or rotation occur from frame 160 and not from an earlier point in the timeline. So basically I'm giving a dividing line between all the frame changes which have happened back here, right? So we've got our zoom out and everything out to 160, and any sort of frame changes that take place after that, because we are going to make more frame changes. Go figure. I move my frame to 190. You'll notice that Juno is at its closest point to Earth, right here, okay? And then we'll continue. From here, at frame 190, as stated before, I insert, make sure my camera properties. I can always double check and click on camera again to make sure I'm choosing camera, because I've done that a few times and it was amazing. Didn't do it a few times. Position, -309, Y 769, position 706, or excuse me, zoom 760%, meaning I'm zoomed in on Juno and Earth. I'm going to use the term correspond. I almost use collide, and that's not it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the rotation option, which is right here, and then the rotation value should be about -39 degrees. After I change it to -39 degrees, I then change it back to the pan and zoom, and I move it up where the Juno is directly behind the Earth, roughly, give or take. Then I push the playhead to frame 215. I rotate it to 0, so I reset my camera rotation angle to 0. Then it's still on 762, 761. And then I take my position and I put it roughly where the Earth and Juno are about in the center, as indicated. Now I move the playhead to frame 228, roughly. And now Juno is moving faster out from the inner solar system, so I'll need to keep backing up the camera. We want to change the zoom value to about 90%, which I did. And we're going to move the camera so most of the solar system, including Jupiter's orbit, is in view, similar to the way I have it here. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to advance my frame head to 480, roughly. There we go. And I want to click on that, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to insert keyframe, and I'm going to insert all. So once again, that means that any frame elements, any camera elements that take place after 480 take place independent of everything that came before it. So now I'm going to work on, since I've had the full rotation to this part of the orbit, now I'm going to work on zooming in and working with Jupiter as before. So at frame 480, I then zoom in. The book wants you to zoom in at 1400. It's just ridiculous. So I did 593%. You'll notice that Jupiter and Juno occupy the center of the screen and are much bigger. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this thing. So I will control, and then I'll push test. And what that does is that process it, so then I can watch it. You have a swing around, zooms out. In the long run, I might ease it a little bit to make it easier, but you can gradually see the zoom coming in, and then it occupies the middle of the screen. So that's absolutely perfect for what we need so far. I don't like that jump, but that's okay. Okay, so the next thing I did is I inserted 2 layers. I inserted a layer called Stars 1, okay? And then I inserted a layer called Stars 2. Then what will happen is, after I inserted Stars 1 and Stars 2, I then went to the library and I grabbed Stars 1 and I drug it out on the Stars 1. And I made sure to select the other one, which was Stars 2. Basically, I took 2 copies of Stars, put it on these 2 layers, and then I selected my tool here, and then I moved the stars where they cover the vast majority of things. And all I did was, you'll notice my mouse pointer turns to the cross, and I just left click, and then I can move all the stars, right? So then I can just rearrange them in such a way and in such a pattern where they have a tendency to cover everything. And then I have stars. And now as I go through, you can see that my graphic actually has stars in the background, right? So let me go ahead and change this up to 100% to kind of see what that looks like, right? So we're going to go ahead and play it, go through. So we're going to do test. There we go. And now when it tests, I have stars. Right? Gives it some sort of depth of field. So we're getting there, slow and sure. I probably should have moved this one out a little bit farther, but that's okay for our purposes. And there you go. Alrighty then. Okay, the next thing I do is I hit stars 2. Now you can add another layer of stars. In the assignment it says add 3 stars, but 2 stars and you're getting the point. So I add layer 2 for stars, so here's my stars 2. And then I actually select my pointer to click on stars 2. So here I click on it. Then what I do under properties, under color effect, I choose brightness, and I'm actually decreasing the brightness of the stars. So you get the appearance or the illusion of depth because some stars are brighter than others, right? So as we go through our, and I'm going to control test, I'm going to test it again. You get to see, like, there's just the illusion that there's more stars. They're not all aligned. They're not equally distant from one another. And you just get that general illusion of depth, except for over here, which I still didn't change. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the layer depth. So each layer will be at least a little bit farther away from each other. So you'll be able to see a depth of field of what we're including here. So in the timeline panel, what we're going to choose is our layer depth tool. It looks similar to this. Then actually the layer depth panel appears. All right, so I made sure that we are 100% for our zoom, so we're able to see all our elements. Then for stars 2, now if you put a stars 3 in, that's fine. I want to change the Z depth of this to 500. So what I'm doing is I'm changing the distance between the layer above it in itself to 500. So here's our camera. Notice I changed that particular layer where it looks like it's lower, I guess. And the problem with making it lower is sometimes the depth between fields goes so low that you can't see it anymore. So if you'll notice here, I'll actually push it back, and I'm going to push it back to 0. Now some of those pop too, and then there's my layer that is my camera, how much it fits. So if you look at this from side view, if this is a camera, and this is the way the camera views your animation, if you decrease the layer of something, let's say I'm going to do this one as 80 as an example. So this layer is 80 pixels or 80 units below the other layer. So I can barely see the little star here. If I move it even farther, I'm going to move it to 600, you'll notice the star disappears because as it's going farther and farther away, so does the size. You can maintain size option so it has the same size, it just looks different. Alrighty. Your maintain size option should be located right up here. I have a slightly older version, so it doesn't work that way. But I can actually change, for instance, if I wanted stars 1, let's say I wanted stars 1 to be 100. Let's do it 250. So it moves those stars back by 250. And then if I do further stars, let's say I wanted to be 275. Right? So that moves them a little bit farther back. I might have to change the brightness. Matter of fact, I'm going to modify those a little bit. You don't have to do exactly this because all you're doing is playing with the background there. But the end result is you have two different levels there. You'll notice there's your blue, which is there, and there's your pink, which is there, and it gives you an idea of the difference between your layers. I'm going to change this one to 100 so you can kind of see a difference. You can play with those until such time as it's a little bit better. All right, so we've changed our layer depth, and now we're going to go ahead and test it again. So we're going to do control, test. So you kind of see more of the illusion of depth. It's subtle, but it's there. You can see the illusion of depth between the two items. Especially if you watch the stars as you're zooming in and out. Alright, this concludes part 1. Tune in for part 2 and we'll make more of the universe happen.